Why does the most dangerous object in the wizarding world sit behind a security system that should have failed? The cave is called an inescapable tomb, and the Inferi are labeled perfect guards. If the trap functioned as intended, why is the body of the most important casualty of the First Wizarding War missing? The official story of Regulus Black is a tragedy in 3 acts. A young Death Eater finds his master's secret, takes a Horcrux, and dies in a cave while being dragged into a lake by the undead. It is a neat, closed loop. Look at the logistics of 1979, and the story falls apart. The cave was a crime scene. If the body is missing, the case stays open. Think about how the trap actually works. The basin holding the drink of despair is a masterclass in psychology. It kills you by making you so thirsty you crawl to the water. That is the genius of the design. Voldemort did not need complex locks because the potion did his work for him. The Inferi are just the cleanup crew. They are reanimated corpses waiting for a trigger. Disturb the surface, and they pull you under. Consider the physics of that lake. Dozens of Inferi should have shredded Regulus. They would have held him down until his lungs filled with water. But in a magical setting, death is not always a biological fact. What if the moment he was supposed to die was the moment he became an outlier? Look at the timeline. Regulus enters the cave with Kreacher, drinks the potion, switches the locket, and gets pulled into the water. The trail ends there. Kreacher returns to Grimmauld Place assuming his master is dead. The elf is loyal, but he is not a detective. He saw struggle and water closing over ahead. He assumed the worst because he saw no other choice. What if the behavior of the Inferi is simpler than we think? Inferi are literal and mindless. They react to ripples in the water. They drag the intruder down. Once the victim stops struggling, do the Inferi just return to their posts? If the water goes still, does the security system reset? The lore describes Inferi as mindless drones. They are dead bodies enchanted to follow orders. They have no malice and no memory. They are a trap mechanism. If Regulus was pulled down, he landed at the bottom of a lake full of corpses. It is a terrifying spot, but it is still a location. If he used a final burst of non-verbal magic to break their grip, he would have been in bad shape. He would have been poisoned and traumatized, but he would have been free. Why did the Dark Lord never check his prize? Voldemort was obsessed with his Horcruxes. He was paranoid. Yet he never returned to the cave. He assumed his trap worked. For a genius like Voldemort, that is a massive oversight. Unless the cave showed no signs of a struggle. If Regulus climbed out of that lake, he would have left the cave and vanished entirely. Think about what that means. If Regulus lived, he was not a hero. He was a ghost. He would have carried a Horcrux that pulsed with malice. He would have known the Dark Lord's biggest secret, but been too broken to tell anyone. Some argue this theory is just a fan trying to save a favorite character. They say the text is clear and the cave is a tomb. That ignores the most haunting question of the series. Where is the body? Every other death in this world has a body, a funeral, and a grave. Regulus Black is the only major player whose death is defined by a total void. The lack of a body is not a narrative convenience. It is a sign that the story we were told is incomplete. If the Inferi are mindless, they cannot confirm a kill. They are a motion sensor. They do not check pulses or sign death certificates. They just drag. If the victim stops moving because they are unconscious rather than dead, the tomb is just a waiting room. We're left with a chilling alternative to history. The drink of despair induces thirst, forcing the victim to trigger the Inferi. What if the potion is not instantly lethal? What if it is just a catalyst for the lake? If a victim is lucky enough to survive the drowning, they still have to face the potion. It breaks the mind, but it does not necessarily stop the heart. Liquid fire
along with poison, strange substances, and other magical weapons which are evil, is standard weaponry in the wizarding world of Bellatrix. These elements inform the character, as if the wizard wears a ghostly armor, envelops the individual in quiet humiliation. While assassinated and deception would likely be utilized, the wizard would never strike from the shadows, a man full of light.
Maybe he did not die that night. Maybe he wandered out of the cave, a broken shell of a man, and died days later in a forest miles away, his secret dying with him. Consider the locket itself. It is a Horcrux with immense corruptive power. Does it have a curse that triggers when it is taken? Magical theory suggests that stealing a Horcrux is not a clean break. The object is tethered to its creator. If Regulus lived, he carried a piece of Voldemort's soul that was actively working to drive him to madness. He would have been a man living on borrowed time as the artifact drained his life force. This is not a romantic ending. It is a horror story. A man escapes a trap only to realize the poison already won. He did not die a hero. He died a victim of his own choices, lost in the shadows of a war that had no room for him. The missing body is the only clue we have left. The official record says he died in the lake. The silence of the cave suggests the lake did not keep what it was meant to hold.
Regulus Black may have been the first person to crack the armor of the Dark Lord. He defected in 1979 because he saw what Voldemort had become. He left a note saying he had stolen the real Horcrux and intended to destroy it, facing death in the hope that his master would finally be mortal. The note is his legacy. It is a declaration of intent and a confession of doom. He knew he was walking into a trap. Did he know he would survive? Or did he accept his death, only to find that even dark magic cannot guarantee a clean ending? When you walk into that cave, you are not entering a tomb. You are entering a crime scene where the evidence is gone. Until that body is found, the question remains, did the cave kill him, or did he leave it, only to be consumed by the consequences of his actions? The Inferi are still waiting in the water. They are mindless. They are waiting for a ripple. In the dark, that is the only answer we will ever get. The lake kept his secret, but it could not keep his body. That is why the name Regulus Black is not just a footnote. He challenged the impossible and vanished into the void, leaving behind only a locket, a note, and a question that haunts the history of the wizarding world. The evidence is gone, the witness is dead, and the truth remains buried beneath the water that refuses to tell its tale.